This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Dovetailing off our discussion at the end of last hour about men not going to college and college-educated women not getting married before they have their first kid at, I would say, increasingly alarming rates, both scores, and what that means for family in America and what that means for America, is one of the most lucid commentaries I've heard from a social commentator in some time. This is specifically about black Americans and the black American family, but it has wider application, as we were discussing last hour, and you'll understand when you hear it. The commentator is a gentleman named Delano Squires, who is a contributor to The Blaze. He was on recently with Jason Whitlock on his podcast. He had this to say against the backdrop of the, as I actually referenced last hour, Lil Nas X is pregnant, publicity stunt, and the whole God versus Caesar dynamic in America at present, culturally.
This week, we had the state of Texas pass a law that says that will prohibit doctors from performing an abortion after a heartbeat is detected. And in the same week, we have our cultural overlords pushing Lil Nas X as a pregnant man. Now, I guarantee you, they wouldn't want to hear anybody say that he should abort his baby. If you understand what I'm saying, right? Because when it comes to black men, they want to encourage us to get pregnant, and encourage black women to kill their offspring. So I'm starting to see this as, and to be quite clear, and Jason, you know, we've talked about this on the show, I'm equally disgusted with the type of culture that Lil Nas X is pushing and what commercial hip hop has been pushing for the better part of 30 years. I think all of it should go in the trash can and we should start new. If we want to talk about defunding, dismantling, tearing down something, I would much rather tear down that stuff than, you know, our current whatever system that people want to talk about, you know, capitalism or education, whatever it is. I'd much rather tear down the type of culture that we have let come into our house collectively as an American people, and specifically in the black community. I'd much rather tear that down and start with something else, because ultimately, as a Christian, I'm thinking, how do the things that are being pushed in culture, whether by, again, the media or by the government, how are those things squaring with what I know to be true about human nature, about God as a creator, and about the nature of his created beings? And these things, this is a clash of worldviews. And the question is Caesar God or is God God? And ultimately, the American public is going to have to answer that question.
Yeah, they are going to have to answer that question. We're answering it with each passing day, but it's the wrong answer. And Squires goes on to add the description of what's being imposed on children that wouldn't have been tolerated by parents or their kids a few generations ago.
Because right now, we're being pushed in a direction where the culture, right, people and CNN and social media and our institutions and our professional leagues, right? The NFL came out of the closet a couple weeks ago. All of the institutions of the culture are using their power, their might, to tenderize our children, right? To soak them in the marinade, to loosen those fibers, the things that parents try to put into them. They're trying to break all that down to get kids to accept things that they would have never accepted 50 years ago. And then on top of that, the institutions of government, through our laws and our policies, want to pulverize any parents that push back, call them bigots, dox them, try to, get them called racists and lose their jobs. And it's up to us as parents, as other concerned allies, to pressurize both parties, because if not, we're going to lose a generation of our kids.
I mean, I can't say it any better than Mr. Squires did. That was really on point, and it really ushers in the critical race theory, the new Marxists that are dominating all those institutions that he's describing. Because what is being celebrated? What has been celebrated in the culture he's describing? Self-indulgence and self-destructiveness. And then when you don't like the consequences of the self-indulgent and self-destructive choices you make, you have identitarian demagogues come along and say, well, it's not your fault. You're a victim. You're being oppressed.
That's so
And
true.
now you have an audience, don't you? And all you have to do is turn over your sovereignty, as we were talking about earlier in the program with respect to COVID. All you have to do is turn over your sovereignty to me, and
They'll gladly accept it.
we'll make everything right.
Yeah.
For more on this topic, please be joined by an equally adroit commentator. He is Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the author of the book just released yesterday, BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution. Mike, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan, thank you very much for having me, especially today to talk about my book, BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution. I think it has a lot to do with everything you've been talking about, everything we're experiencing today.
Yeah, and so, I know, and I read a piece you wrote over at Daily Signal about Alicia Garza and Patrisse Cullors, the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, and we've talked a lot about them, and we've let their own words do the talking. I mean, they're avowed Marxists, trained Marxists. They're trying to usher in a revolution based on identity. And but do we need to get past them? I mean, it seems like the discussion of Marxism versus capitalism is a losing one. I mean, the argument of Marxism versus capitalism is a losing one for the capitalist, for the free minds and free markets type person. And maybe what Delano Squires is getting to is more the direction this conversation needs to take to drive it home to people in terms of, losing a generation of kids, like he said, separating kids from their parents, like he said.
I mean, all of the above, right? I think that we can't abandon the defense of freedom. We can't abandon the defense of free markets. By the way, I've been traveling across the country. I've lost count. I was trying to write down all the cities that I've been in the last 3 months, and it's like almost 15 now. It's from Denver to Dallas to Chicago. And by the way, I love your city. To
we used to,
used to be something
Loudoun
good.
County.
We used to love it.
I went to Wrigley Field about 3 weeks ago, and I had a great time.
Should have gone to Comiskey to see a real baseball team.
And I'm going to be in about 15 other cities in the next 3 months. And I tell you, what I hear, I do hear people say are activated by the fact that this Marxism, this communism, again, coming back. Look, this year we marked the 30th anniversary of the defeat of the Soviet Union. We thought we had defeated communism, and here we are facing real Marxist influences within our main institutions. I argue in my book, BLM, that this is the result of 2020, that 2020 changed things and not for the better. And I think the American people are now, they get a vote, famously, and they're saying, no, we don't want this. We don't want critical race theory in our classrooms. We don't want critical race theory in the military. We don't want, and it's important to quote them. That's the reason I do in my book, to quote Garza and Opal Tometi and Patrisse Cullors when they say they want to burn the whole system down. They want to dismantle capitalism. They want to dismantle, in the words of Alicia Garza, the organizing principle of this society. They want to get rid of everything. Now, you and I know America is not perfect. No country on earth will be perfect. It has imperfections that need to be corrected. We need to improve. But it is pretty good. I lived in 7 countries around the world when I was a foreign correspondent. And I can tell you, there are people falling out of the skies because they want to come here, not the other way around. So do your listeners want the whole system to be dismantled? No, they don't. They don't. They want us to continue to perfect ourselves. They want to improve, not destroy. And that is the reason I wrote my book, because the journalists are not talking about this. And it does make a difference. It does matter that the founders of BLM, the organizations, are Marxists. They're communists. Now, they don't use the word communist. Patrisse Cullors herself just got a video saying, well, I believe in Marxism, but, communism has such a bad rap, she doesn't like to use the term. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to use it. By the way, I should say that they're able to succeed to a large degree because the concept of Black Lives Matter is so powerful. It matters a lot to me. I don't even say all lives matter. Black lives matter. They matter to me. It also matters to me that the organizations using the slogan want to dismantle and destroy society and are Marxist.
Well, what's the future of BLM? Because I'm one of the only nerdy people around Chicago that actually watches local news, and they've had about 3 BLM protests with the same 5 people, and they still get coverage. It's still in the A block of the news, but their numbers seem to be dwindling. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Support for BLM has plummeted a lot because of people like me keep writing. However, look at what we're dealing with today, and this is what I argue in a piece that I published this morning. We're dealing with a spike in crime. I don't need to tell you that. You know exactly what I'm talking about, given where you live. And we're dealing with this growing conflict over critical race theory creeping into every aspect of our lives. These are the twin legacies of BLM. They have left us with this. They've had a huge impact. They have a curriculum in schools that's being taught. So this, support by Americans. Rank and file Americans don't want any part of this. But the people who make up the school boards in the nation's 14,000 school districts, they're not rank and file. They have been put there by the teachers' unions. They have been indoctrinated in schools of ed, where Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed is the main textbook used. They're committed to critical race theory. So while yes, support for BLM, thank God, is dropping, they're being very successful right now at having an impact in our lives. That's the reason I write about this. Journalists will not.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. First of all, financially, popular support may be dwindling, but that doesn't mean corporate support is. And you've got more funds being set up that are identitarian in nature, including by the sons of the former CEO of Amex, that are at Howard University, that are substantial and have substantial backing, and they know how to play the game to generate the resources that confer power and influence. And it can be a very small percentage of people supporting what they're doing, and yet they're a steamroller, and they just roll over even majority support. We're seeing that happen even where there are parents putting up a fight in these school districts. And so now you have these conversations about fight or flight. We're trying to fight. We're losing. The school board doesn't listen. The administration doesn't listen. They've got corporate backers. They've got the elites in the particular communities in professional circles that are going to back the play. And so, you have a small cadre of folks who have disproportionate influence, and they're driving the train. So I wonder how, the advice and counsel you provide for those who do want to take up this intellectual battle in their school district or, frankly, in their workplace. What are they to do when they may have the numbers, but they don't have the resources that would win the day?
Well, first of all, become educated. Buy my book, find out about the Marxist origin of these organizations, the founders. Second of all, look, there are many things being done. Becoming aware, going to school board meetings, becoming vocal. Either way, by the way, just, people should go to school board meetings and express themselves. This is your school board. They're your children. You should not abdicate this responsibility. You should be aware where your children are being taught. You should call the principal, call the vice principal, call the teacher, email her, email him, vote in elections. Second of all, regarding the workplace, you bring up an excellent point. It's not just a school thing. Americans are being harassed at work. Well, a lot of suits are coming up. If something is happening in your company, contact either Chris Rufo at chrisrufo.com. He's a great journalist who does a lot of work in this area. Contact us, Heritage. Get in contact with me through Twitter. Get this out. Become a whistleblower about what's happening in your company. Everybody will protect your identity. And there's also a lot of suits being brought up. Every day we hear more and more that employees are saying, basta, I'm going to sue you. You cannot do this to me. It's illegal under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act to discriminate according to race or ethnicity or sex. So there are legal foundations in every state that will do this kind of work. Most of them pro bono. There are many responses here, Dan.
There's a good piece in the Journal over the weekend from Walter Russell Mead about identity politics and how it's playing out in from South Africa to Central Asia, which is it's fomenting separatist movements and tribal violence, and sort of like a bit of foreshadowing of where this thing could go in America. And you, by the way, have separatist secession movements in almost a dozen states going on in this country right now. Do you worry at all that we could go the way of some of the countries Walter Russell Mead writes about?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Walter Russell Mead. I'm going to read this piece you referenced. Look, that is our DNA. The hard thing is what we had been doing as a country, which is to bring people from all over the world, a truly multi-ethnic country, united not in multiculturalism, but united around American ideals, which we fail sometimes, but we have to aspire to. That is what has worked wonderfully for America. But what's in our DNA is tribalism. That is when we seize to do what we had done in America before. We found her in tribalism, and yes, many people talk about South Africa as an example of what we could become. Through identity politics. Identity politics, obviously, is a big part of all this. BLM relies hugely on identity politics. The idea that we're not individuals really, but we're members of categories, and some of these categories are oppressed, some of these categories are oppressors. Everything is power. The power dynamics. No, we're all Americans. We should think of ourselves as American, all pitching in our historic purposes, united goals. That's the way. When we have succeeded, that's what we have done.
He is Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, the author of the book just released yesterday. Pick it up. BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution. BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution is Mike Gonzalez's book. Mike, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Meet Tim.
Hey, what's up?
He's the person you hired for your digital marketing strategy. And when he's done battling aliens on his PS5 in his parents' basement, I'm sure he'll get right to work. Now, meet the team at Salem Surround.
What's up?
Over 200 digital media strategists with all the current digital tools, resources, and training, bringing your business the real results you need. These are the people who are passionate about your marketing success.